I'm Anya and welcome to my arts channel. I always wanted to paint with oils. My granddad was oil painter. He used to love painting, and back in the day, unfortunately, I wasn't that interested in art, or at least in oil painting. It always seemed so complicated, so grown up. You had to have such a knowledge, and it was a little bit scary for me. And sadly, I didn't get a chance to learn from my granddad because he passed away a few years back. And I wish I had that chance. I braved out and just tried it out. I heard all good things about oil painting, that it's magical to mix, and a vibrancy that you don't get in acrylics. And it dries for a really long time, so it gives you opportunity for paint to be there for longer, so you can mix and mix and mix and create beautiful effects. So it looks deeper and stronger and more vivid, and I would agree with that. Having worked with both acrylics and oil is definitely, I can see that difference. So I have attended in the past 2-day workshops, and I think the teacher, bless him, he probably thought I know more than I did, because I didn't know much about chemicals and what to use. He just briefly told me, but I had no confidence about chemicals, and I wish I knew a little bit more about that. So I was always a bit worried because I heard, oh, that's toxic, you have to be careful not to breathe that, and toxic paint can cause you obviously illness. So I wanted to research that really well before I started. So I started researching, I started watching YouTube videos, reading about it, testing out, and finding out. And I came across this book, The New Oil Painting, The Essential Guide to Materials and Safe Practices by Kimberly Brooks. And it's exactly that. It answers my questions regarding anything. And you think, sometimes you're worried to ask and you think that's a silly question, or experienced painter might just think those questions are so obvious they wouldn't even think about explaining that. So I wanted to tell you today what I learned from the book and from the other sources. Then hopefully that could help you just to be braver with oil painting and give you a bit of confidence. Like, I wish someone did that to me when I was at the beginning stage. So yeah, hopefully. So first of all, the author talks about easels. Apparently, she doesn't really use easels. She puts the canvas directly on the wall, which I don't think I could do personally, because I would be worried to damage the wall. I haven't got really area to do that. So I much prefer to use easel. I have the travel easel, which is full standing one, which is wonderful because I love standing and paint rather than sit. The other one is a top table easel, and that's quite practical because it's so quick to set it up. So that's my approach, but you can try that. She was swearing by, and you have that eye level that you would stand and watch the picture. So that's the bonus. Then we move to the chapter with paint, and she talks about the history, different pigments, the opacity of each pigment, how they react. So it's a really, really good chapter, good information. And she recommends for the beginners to experiment with just one color and white, to mix it up in different ratios, and just to practice and to get dimension from that before you move into full color. And that, I think that's a great tip. Next chapter is about mediums, and I was very confused about mediums. First of all, I thought mediums is like different kind of types of art supplies. So you can have watercolor medium, pastel mediums, oil mediums, and so on, so on. But that's actually not that. This is about the medium, which is, I have, for example, linseed oil, and it's basically a liquid that's supposed to help you with paint to glide, because paint straight out of tube is quite solid. and it can be quite thick when you put it on canvas. But this medium helps to make it glide, to make it much more fluid, more like water-like. So it's really good for glazing. Glazing is applying very thin layers of paint or paint with medium, and it just gives the deeper tones if you want to make something deeper. There are techniques where you would put glaze on a glaze on a glaze, and that will just create beautiful depth in the picture. So also it can be wiped off the areas we don't need it. So for example, sky, and thicker layers can create impasto effect. So you can make that with this. So with linseed oil, just a word of caution, because it is highly flammable. It can actually spontaneously combust if you store it, if you use lots of rags, for example, for painting, for wiping your brush into a rag, and you put it in the corner somewhere and there's lots of rags, and if it's bundled up, it reacts with oxygen and it can actually catch fire. So you need to be really careful. It creates heat with oxygen. I didn't know about it. I was a little bit worried. And usually painters say, oh, it's very extreme situations. But, you know, it's good to know how to store those things. They are chemicals, highly flammable usually, so it's very dangerous. I don't know if it's flammable actually, I said, but it's by itself. But with the rags, when it reacts with oxygen, it is. She also talks about different types of oils like walnut, poppy, clove, safflower oils, and they can give you different properties. So for kind of yellowy look, it could cause that. And you can also make your own medium. If you, for example, take linseed oil and mix it with marble dust or chalk, you can make it into your own medium, a bit more thicker. So that's definitely something to experiment with. And I did check, you can buy marble dust in Jackson's shop, which is one of my favorite art supply shops. Solvents. I was so confused about solvents medium. What is what? But solvents, you have to be really careful to choose the right solvent. My granddad used to use turpentine, and oh my goodness, that's one of the heaviest, most toxic one there is. It was back in the day. But I did my research and I chose the one that I like, which is orange peel, Studio Safe orange solvent, and it thins the paint and delays the drying time, so it makes the paint drying much slower, so you can mix it more. It's great. It just makes it thinner, because sometimes the paint is just too thick. Once you start experimenting, you'll see what you need to use. And bonus points, it smells lovely of oranges, so I can't really complain about that. I'd rather smell that than the toxic, horrible turpentine. She also talks about different type of brushes, the types, the shapes, the natural, synthetic, what they are for, what jobs, and it's all described in the book, so there's lots of information about that. She talks about palettes, what type, about palette knives, what's the best one to use. She recommended this leaf shape, kind of 2 inches leaf shape, pointy tip palette knife, shall I say. Great practice is to mix your colors beforehand, so you have everything laid out roughly. You can then tweak things, but it's good to have that initial mixes ready. And what else she said? She talked about surfaces, canvas, the boards, panel, canvas pads, how to prepare with gesso. I'll never find out how to pronounce that. Kimberly also touches on digital technology. She talks about social media, Photoshop. I believe these chapters will probably age so quickly because technology goes forward and things change, but still it's worth reading. There is lots of practical little tips, and like what to use the jars for, the mugs, the containers, or even chopstick, what they can be used for. So that's really handy information. How to set up your table. There is advice on that. It's good to have a consistent setup, always the same way, so you learn how to use things. You get that muscle memory, where is what. Toning the canvas to lose that snow white scary canvas. I also like to tone my canvas, so I would use solvent with a little bit of paint, or I would use acrylic paint actually with water to was that initial layer, very thin, just to give it a tone. It also makes it cohesive at the end. It looks beautiful together. Also like using the method which is called, that's a mouthful, grisaille. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that well, but it's basically mapping your shadows with one of the tones. It's normally burnt umber, and you do, the picture looks like a monochrome. It just got those shadows in, and obviously the light color, and then you put colors on, and it's extremely effective. I have to say, I was a bit skeptical at first, but it is a great method. It gives you very good realism. Color mixing shows great examples of mixing gray tones with white, and avoiding mixing your paint with brushes. You want to use your palette knife for that, because the paint can get stuck in your brushes and it's very difficult to get it out, and it can contaminate when you move from paint to paint. And keep wiping your palette knife with paper towel to avoid contamination, or with some old rugs or things like that. Basically, before you do another mix with that palette knife, just clean it first. And it's easy, you just wipe it off. It is much easier to paint those light tones at the very end. You don't want to mix it in the middle of a painting or at the beginning. So it's good to have that practice where your lightest light go at the very end. Otherwise things will mud up and you think, why is this paint not getting any lighter? And it's just dark, dark, dark. It's mixing with the existing paint on the canvas. So keep that on the very end. Fat over lean. I was always very confused about that. I didn't know what that meant. So obviously you have your fat, which is linseed oil, and lean, your solvent, which makes it very thin. So use your paint and solvent, which looks a bit like a watery mixture. You can use very different ratios. Then build more thicker texture, more thicker level. So you will go from that, you'll move into paint straight out of tube. And then you'll go with paint plus medium. And then that will be your order. So solvent, paint, medium. Not other way around, because if you go other way around, you have problems at the beginning, and maybe a few years down the line, your painting will be damaged because it will start peeling, cracking, and it just will be ruined painting. It's just a practice that is, there's a reason behind that. Some painters use only paint straight out of tube. They don't bother with solvent, they don't bother with medium. So if it's up to you, but it's great to have those options, to have those things, because you've got more control, more tools to use for your different techniques. Also, you can use, like I said earlier, you can use your acrylic paint with tiny bit of water to paint at the beginning stage. So with that mapping shadows or toning, but not other way around. You cannot put acrylic on top of oils. So that's important bit. Cleaning your brushes, you can use vegetable oil. So apparently oil on oil works really well to clean. Sap, washing up liquid, or you can have, I have one of those liquids which is brush cleaner. It's all ready. So removes wet and dry paint. It's quite strong and it's working really well. And that's my least favorite thing about oil painting, is cleaning the brushes. So don't forget to clean them, because if you leave them overnight, you can say goodbye to them, you can put them in a bin because they will just harden up and will be horrible to clean. So varnishing, wait until 6 months to varnish, because paint does cure for about 6 months, even up to a year, and you don't want to make a mess out of it. Apply 2 layers of varnish. Use synthetic one, because other one, the organic one, does yellow your painting over time. So the one I use is this one from Galeria. I believe it works for oils as well. I need to just double check that. But I used to use that for my acrylic paint. And don't use kind of varnishes for furniture or for DIY, because it can make it tacky, it can make blooming. It's different type of varnish, so not all varnish is equal. Just be aware of that. And to finish, the great little book is truly great. It's like chatting to an experienced painter that wants to give us all the tips and advice, and I really wish I had that years ago. It's just explained in a simple way and quite in depth about all I have to know about painting. And you can, there's a lot of examples, a lot of pictures, so you should really get that book if you want to have that on with you, more information, more in depth. So definitely recommend it, and I'll be keeping that. I'll have it on my shelf, so I can always come back to that information. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Please let me know if you have any questions, any thoughts, any tips. And please subscribe if you enjoy that. If you would like to hear more from me, I'll be adding regular videos hopefully soon. And have a lovely day. Bye.